Hey guys, we're doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Q&A number 6, and I got a few questions this week. Not too many, but that's okay. I'll still go through them just to get right into them. So, David Wolford asked me about what decks are best against Dark World decks and Lightsworn decks, or Lightsworn decks. He said swarm in the question. This type of thing gets asked a lot, mostly because people run into Dark Worlds and Lightsworns a lot because they're pretty common, easy decks, and a lot of people get frustrated because they play against them a lot and they don't know what to do. And the truth is that both of these decks are very easy to deal with. It's really not about the deck you play against them. Dark World and Lightsworn both have something in common that you can easily side against them. If you can shut down what they're trying to do, it's very difficult. So with Dark World, if you can shut down their graveyard or get rid of Grapha, they can't really do much. Lightsworns, if you can side something that takes out their graveyard, again, they won't be able to summon Judgment Dragon. If you can just focus on negating Judgment Dragon or things like that, or getting rid of Judgment Dragon, then they won't be able to do much of that either. So it's not really about what deck you use. There's a lot of cards that just work perfect against these decks, like the Imprisoning Mirror cards, anything that negates effects, anything that banishes. Both of those decks rely on their bosses, and without their bosses they can't do that much. So as long as you can deal with those, there really isn't that much of an issue. Now, talking about just a little bit in specific decks, if you want to be Dark Worlds, just run something fast like Six Samurais. It'll blow up Dark Worlds because of how fast it works. Dark Worlds have to work to get out Grapha, so if you could beat them to it, they won't be able to do that much, which is very, very nice, especially because Six Samurais can deal with its destruction very easily, so it's not a big issue for them. Lightsworns, I wouldn't recommend like a specific deck to run against them. One of the more crazier things I like to do against Lightsworns is run like a mill deck, because even though it helps them, they mill so fast that if you can mill and stall, stalling is kind of good against Lightsworns too. If you can stall and mill and that kind of thing, they won't be able to do that much. Lightsworns are meant to do their stuff really quickly, and if they can't do their stuff really quickly, they will lose. They'll deck out themselves. So that's one of the ways you can deal with them. But again, these are two decks you should be siding against. You shouldn't be picking a deck to beat them. If you want, you can just make a deck of all the side cards that beat them. But yeah, it's more just about the fact that they can get sided against. One of the reasons Dark Worlds isn't that competitive is because it can get sided against extremely easily. So now Simply Yu-Gi-Oh asked me a couple questions. So he asked me about kind of the prices about cards and how they go up and down and stuff like that. Now I'm not going to be completely accurate about this because I don't focus too much on real cards. I don't really have very many because I can't afford to keep the hobby right now. I might in the future, but it's not what I'm doing right now. That's why all my deck profiles are online. But when it comes to the pricing, there's a few different things that determine it. It's about the rarity of the card. It's about what version of it is, whether it's like a reprint, whether it's in demand, like its popularity. Like Dracosac should be expensive, and that's the example he mentions because it's a very popular card right now. Fire Fists are very popular right now. Everyone wants their hands on Exciton Knight and Silent Honor right now. So it's more of just basic supply and demand. If you've studied economics at all, it's pretty basic that it just, if people really need that card and it's very hard to get, its price is just going to go up. So it just depends. When cards get banned and stuff like that, the price will go down. Depending on whether it's in demand and stuff like that. So we determine the demand somewhat as players, and we also determine. It also gets determined by Konami's releasing of it and which packs it's in and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of factors that go into it to determine the price. But if you really want to stay competitive, you're just going to have to put down a lot of money to play those top tier decks. That's just how it goes, because a lot of those top tier decks end up getting expensive when people realize what the skeletons are, because they become so common to pick those exact cards. So Simply Yu-Gi-Oh asked me another interesting question, which is, I'm just going to read right from him because he phrases it in the right way. He says, do you ever find yourself so frustrated with a deck because it won't work that you give up on it? So I think this is a good question for a deck maker or anyone who plays the game. If you like making decks a lot, I feel like this is an issue you'll run into no matter what. If you can make every deck work all the time, then that's pretty lucky and amazing. I run into that issue commonly. It's it's not really the fact of giving up on it. I try never to give up on a deck, but I try to, take a break and look back on it and try to get ideas from other people. I have a very extensive process with how I make decks, and part of it, works around the fact that you can easily get frustrated with a deck. I've gotten frustrated with many decks. I tried to make a Moki Moki deck. I got extremely frustrated with that because it's not supposed to work. So there weren't that many, examples of how to make it work. A lot of decks I try aren't supposed to be very good, and I try to make them as good as possible, and it's still difficult. Um, the philosophy you have to take is that no deck is perfect. No matter what, you have to keep working on it and keep improving it. It doesn't matter if it won't work, especially the way you built it. It just matters that it has a strategy, it has something going for it that you can build upon later. But I'd recommend never giving up on a deck. Just keep trying. Ask for help. Definitely ask people for help. Look for people that have made similar decks. If you're trying an idea that's never been done before, yeah, it's going to be tricky and it's going to take time. And yeah, it probably won't work the first, 3, 4, 5 times. But if you really are dedicated to it and you have fun with it and it's interesting for you to keep messing with it, then that's great, because it just creates something great inside you that you keep working on it and you keep having this fun thing to do. You keep trying to improve it, and that's part of the fun part of deck making. I put out a deck every day. I can't really afford to spend that much time constantly working on it. I like to go back and work on it later. That's kind of how I do things. But if you're really dedicated to one deck or a few decks like a lot of people are, then you'll run into this issue and you just can't let it affect you that much. Just don't give up on decks. It's always bad just to give up on decks, because whether it can be top tier competitive, whether it can beat a few decks, whether it can only beat, let's say if it can only beat one deck, it can only beat one certain deck that you might play against one day. That's an effective deck. It works. It does what it can do against that certain deck. So there's no reason to give up on a deck. Just keep trying. And someone like me who makes decks all the time, I'm always free to help people with that kind of thing. So just keep working on it. And I wish you luck with any deck you do get frustrated on, because it does happen to a lot of people, and it happens to me definitely very commonly. So you're not alone out there. So thank you for the questions. I definitely like to get some more so I can try to help people out. I go on Dueling Network all the time, and it's just full of questions all the time. I wish I could help everyone, but I can't really do it that way. So I try to do this series for that. If you have questions maybe about decks or rulings, I definitely would like to help people with rulings, because they ask that all the time. If you want to know more about me, you can ask things outside the game. You want to ask about archetypes or cards, or anything you guys can think of, you can ask me in the comments below, or you can send me a tweet on Twitter. I'll also answer stuff that gets posted there. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.